And now I would like to turn it over to Dr. Vanessa Gray.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our November DLIS discussion. Today, we're talking about e-resources, and I'm sure that we have a great deal of people in here who has either expertise or have dealt with e-resources before, or just may want to learn a little bit more about it. So I would like to know who you are. We have a good little group here. If you can either come off mute and say your name and your role or from what library you're from, or you can put it in the chat. So how is everyone doing today?
Doing good. Hi, this is Matthew from the Palm Harbor Library, which is in Pinellas County, and just enjoying a prepackaged peanut butter and jelly sandwich for a late lunch.
Awesome, Matthew. Can I have some?
You don't want it, trust me. It's a healthy PB&J. It's not good. It's really not good.
Well, thank you, Matthew, for joining us today. Enjoy your healthy PB&J.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Deborah Williams, and I'm the Scholarly Communications Librarian at the Thomas G. Carpenter Library here at the University of North Florida. It's nice to see everyone.
Welcome, welcome, Deborah. Thank you for joining us. And I see we have some people posting in the chat. Monica is director from Helen B. Hoffman Plantation Library in Broward County. Jacrisia Williams, program coordinator with Hillsborough County Public Library. Then we have Laura, the manager of public services from Lee County Library. Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. So the first question that we have for our group discussion today is, this was actually a suggestion from an email we received in order to have our e-resources topic. What are the creative ways you use the e-resources available to you, and how do your patrons use your e-resources? I will also post that question in the chat. So if anyone would like to share, you can either come off mute or post in the chat. What are the creative ways you use the e-resources available to you, and how do your patrons use your e-resources?
Vanessa, this is any kind of e-resources or?
Any kind, sure.
Okay. Well, I don't know if this qualifies as an e-resource, but it is something that we've seen kind of semi-regular use of since we got it. And it's called the Short Story Machine. And if anybody's not familiar with it, I think we bought it from a company based in France. It was bought before my time, but it's what it sounds like, where you can kind of go up to it and push a button and it spits out a short story. And the reason I kind of keep it in that e-resource column is because it can be I think there's some avenues for like accepting submissions for it, where that we can kind of go through a process and add them into the short story collection, which randomly will get generated each time somebody spits it out. And then every now and then, my understanding is that some of my staff will use it as like a prompt or as a part of an event if it matches in some way. And so I think it's pretty creative. Again, not strictly an e-resource, but is sort of a hybrid thing that I think is pretty cool. And
Awesome.
the short story gets spit out on like a receipt, like anywhere from like a foot to maybe 14 or 15 inches long or something like that. And yeah, it's pretty interesting, pretty cool.
That is pretty
So
cool.
if you're in the Palm Harbor neighborhood, please stop by and we will generate one for you.
Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. That sounds fascinating. Nice engagement tool as well. Does anyone else have a creative way that they use e-resources or have seen your patrons use them? I see Brian in the chat states, I use them when assisting patrons with genealogy research and patrons with general reference queries for business, social services, health queries, readers advisory, etc. Okay, awesome. Do you have any particular ones that you like, Brian? Do you have any favorites, favorite e-resources? And as he's typing or coming off mute, I want to share Judy Shannon's response in the chat. I love that idea related to Matthew's. Since many people read in short bites now, yes, chunking is very is also an educational tool. Awesome. So any favorite e-resources or any creative ways that your libraries either using them or patrons are? I see that Deborah has posted Sage research methods. Yeah, I like that one too. We use them to teach students about research methodology as a part of library instruction, and the faculty uses it in assignments. Okay, I see Judy responded. I'm kind of going through the chat. It keeps jumping, so if I miss yours, please let me know. Oh, Monica Knapp says we use Florida Memory. Awesome. That's one of the state resources. Thank you so much. Local History Museum. Awesome. Okay, kind of related. We recently started an Overdrive partnership with Martin County to share our Overdrive collections with each other. Awesome. Would love to see more Florida libraries join and expand all of our collections. That's great, Judy. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry, that wasn't Judy. That was Jay Bass. Thank you for sharing that. And Brian states he likes Ancestry Library Edition, Family Search, WebMD, several business sources on our reference homepage. Awesome. I see we have some more people who have joined us. If you would like to share where you're from and the first question for today is, what are the creative ways you use the e-resources available to you, and how do your patrons use your e-resources? And we've already received some awesome resources, and not just in one genre, in multiple. So we have something for everybody. All right. One of the reasons why we host these DLIS discussions so we all can learn from one another And I'm glad that we have some people in here who are sharing their resources and their favorites. If you could please come off mute or share in the chat any additional resources that you might have. Welcome, Heather. Thank you for joining us. From St. Johns County Public Library System in St. Augustine. Awesome. I just recently migrated from Jacksonville 2.5 months ago. So I am very familiar with St. Johns County. Awesome, Heather. Well, great to virtually see you again. And Ryan said, again, we have some readers advisory resources on our reference homepage. Awesome. Is there anything you would like to know about e-resources? Do you have any expertise in that area? I know that there are some roles in the Florida libraries that either have an electronic resources librarian, or they have programs surrounding that topic. Is anyone on here an electronic resources librarian or work with it exclusively in your role? KJ Bass said we have a paraprofessional focused on resource training and research. Awesome. Okay. Just one, maybe not enough. So another question that came up is what can be done to provide more e-resources for our communities? I think I heard someone come off mute. If you would like to do that again and share. The last question was what can be done to provide more e-resources for our communities?
So just thinking about it, I know that we do have some resource sharing through FLVC and other organizations that support libraries in Florida. But I think we can also look for open access resources and make them available on our front-facing library sites so that our patrons have access to those types of resources.
That's a great idea, Deborah. Thank you for sharing that. And Matthew put in the chat, more FEL databases. We have our FEL administrator on the call, Dorothy Frank. So that's a plug for her, for her programs.
Tell me more. So I've heard folks say that they use research databases, and I just heard somebody say they like the ones that the FEL has. What are you all interested in having added to the FEL? Not that I can promise anything, but I'd like to hear more.
Udemy is a suggestion.
Udemy.
I think I pronounced that correctly.
Oh, demographics now. Yes, yes. You know, we have looked into that. For those of you who don't know, demographics now is an amazingly powerful tool that small businesses can use that combines marketing information, business information, census information, demographics, the sales. So if you go to the, I don't know that people do it as much anymore, but when you like, you would go into, say, for example, Michael's or Home Depot, and they'd ask you what your zip code is, and they type it in. All of a sudden, now that database says that, hey, somebody from this zip code just bought a sink, or somebody from this zip code just bought knitting needles and some yarn. And so you get a real. It doesn't give you who. It doesn't give you any more information than just that zip code area, but that then goes into these demographic databases, and demographics now would pull it. So small businesses could say, hey, people just drove 40 miles to get to a yarn store. Maybe you could open a yarn store closer by, and you'd have a lot more people from that zip code. Like, so there's all this like marketing analysis that you could do. Unfortunately, Gale has dropped, the FEL vendor has dropped demographics now. And so that's why people are asking for it, because it really is a powerful tool. We have looked to see if we could find anything. We will continue to look. I promise you, we will continue to look, but we haven't found anything that quite does it all like demographics now did. But we'll keep our ears open, and we'll keep it looking. You can still use it through March. Okay, it's still on the website. It's still usable till March.
We're getting a whole lot of suggestions in the chat, Dolly. Tutoring, car repair, something on Statista,
Okay.
and LinkedIn Learning
See.
is
Language
another one.
learning,
Language
Statista, or
learning.
something similar. I'll look into Statista. I don't think I've seen that one. LinkedIn Learning, Rosetta Stone, and Mango Languages. So tell me, so all you folks who are talking about the language learning, are you seeing a lot of demand for that? Are people using yours, or asking for it a lot? And the reason I turned off is because my bandwidth just told me if I didn't turn off my camera, I'd drop the whole thing. So my apologies. I'm on the low end of the bandwidth.
Christine mentioned that, let's see,
English and Latin
English
American
and Latin American
Spanish.
Spanish, the most
Yeah.
popular languages. And to your earlier point, Deborah said they're on a trial with mental reports, Mentil reports, to replace demographics now. Interesting. I've never heard of that before. The Mentil reports. I'm going to look
I
into
haven't heard
that
of
myself.
that one either.
Look into that one.
Statista from Germany. Okay. Yeah, so we'll look at some of these. Absolutely, because I did a little bit of a look for a replacement of demographics now earlier, and some of them were just priced way beyond what we could afford. But we'll keep looking, because we know it's a good thing to help small businesses and other folks too, even libraries who are interested in market analysis.
Okay. These are some great suggestions. So I'm seeing also in the chat, Language e-resources supports our English cafe classes and outreach efforts. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, Jay? And forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name right.
Statista? Is that what
Um,
you're asking about?
for the language e-resources supports our English
That's
cafe.
not me. That was Judy.
Judy, I apologize. Well, since you're on the call, do tell us about Statista.
We're like getting a trial and learning more about it if it has the same functionality and scope as demographics now. We're definitely interested in a replacement for that. We use it in planning purposes as well for new libraries and businesses around and census data. I mean, it's been really helpful. So we would love to have something to replace it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Oh, Judy, I apologize. The chat keeps jumping up and down. So as soon as I read something, I see the name and then it jumps.
No problem. Well, in our English cafe classes, our staff, part of having our patrons and attendees there is introducing them to our library resources. So being able to do demonstrations and show them that the apps we have for Mango and Rosetta Stone is part of programming. And then in our outreach, any of the events we go out in the community, we usually have staff there that have devices and show everybody what we have, what the library has to offer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Judy. That's a great way to use those resources. And Kristen says an additional resource we use with our English cafe classes is News for You online from New Readers Press. Would you like to talk about that, Kristen? Or any other resources you use for your English cafe? While she is thinking about that, this would be really good for our adult learning um, programs that we have. Currently, we have our library math cafe. So English cafe, that would be something interesting. Okay, Kristen says every week they post 7 news stories, a crossword puzzle, word search, other exercises, and vocabulary. It's specifically made for ESL learners. Awesome. Thank you, Kristen, for sharing that. Would anyone else like to share any creative ways or any e-resources that are their favorites or best practices for how we can promote our e-resources to our communities?
Thanks, Vanessa. I'm going to promote a little resource right here.
Awesome.
This is our very own Florida Library Employee e-card from the State Library of Florida, which is available to all employees at any Florida Public Library, K-12 or public academic library are eligible for the card. And I don't know how many folks here already have their card, but you can sign up instantly. And last time we did a webinar, somebody signed up while we were on the webinar. And then I'm going to throw in the link to our State Library of Florida Library Professional e-resources. So these are e-resources that are available to you related to all kinds of things that you do in your job. And then one other resource that's available on there on that same page is the Express Reads. We have that on the EBSCO, and those are short, engaging books with reading levels accessible to adult literacy and English language learners. And these are not, can't be shared with patrons, but they can be shared with all of your library staff to preview these titles and see whether you'd like to build a similar collection for your patrons.
Thank you, Katrina. Katrina is our adult learning consultant. So I'm sure she's very interested in the discussion that's going on in the chat. And we have a hand raised. Heather, you can come off mute and share.
So mine was in regards and how do you get your the public to know about your e-resources, and just something that we noticed that happened. We recently switched to a different collection software, and it had the ability to integrate our ebooks in with our regular collection materials. And our ebook collection, or our ebook borrowing, went up more than we could ever have expected. We ended up using Koha, and Koha had an ability to, through Aspen, I think, to make it so patrons could see if we had that as an ebook readily available. And I would say that also had the same effect when we were able to integrate our Ask a Librarian tag onto our collections page, not just our library page. We started seeing emails almost immediately, or questions from the email platform, like where you can see it as a pop-up on the screen. It had a huge increase in patron awareness of these resources.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That sounds like a success story. Awesome. And then there's another in the chat from Kristen's, I believe. Yes. To help with the promotion of a couple of business resources, A to Z databases and Gale Business Plan Builder, our county's economic development departments has links to those on their website. Awesome. So is this in collaboration where you have a connect at the economic development department and they decided to put it on there, or how did that come to happen? You asked nicely. Well, that works. Awesome. I tell you, nice and kindness goes a long way. And that's a great strategy for promoting e-resources or any resource into the community. You know, just ask. You never know until you ask. What's the worst they can say is no. A friend of mine used to say no means next opportunity. All right. So I know we're talking about e-resources, but if there is anything else, you know, as far as discussions in the future you would like for us to talk about, anything you're interested in, please feel free to share that. If you have more discussion on e-resources, please feel free to take yourself off mute and talk or share in the chat. We love to hear feedback from you all, from all libraries in Florida. And we want to make sure that what we are talking about is engaging and helpful for you. Because then what's the point of talking? Want to make sure that you are able to take this back or share with each other the wonderful things you're doing. All right. So any other success stories or even challenges that you might be facing with e-resources? Does anyone have any challenges that they've come across that might be for the good of the group, as my supervisor would say? Matthew says just dollars going up every year, no solutions. Well, I wish I could help with that. Yeah, that is a significant challenge. So I'm curious, besides the English Cafe, does anyone else have a program surrounding e-resources? Oh, Deborah mentioned in the chat promoting the e-resources to our patrons, to our students, faculty, and staff. Yes. Heather, absolutely. Please share.
We recently acquired Biblioboard, and we're having a series, Publish Your Family History, and it's about using Biblioboard in that sense to write your family history and either publish it through them using their press books and through the Indie Author Project, or just using press books to make it so you have a publishable or printable family history physical copy.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That sounds fun. That reminds me of, I think it was Brian that mentioned genealogy. Yeah, ancestry. Yep. Ancestry Library Edition Family Search. So that might be a great um, event to have, our resource to have.
I'd like to ask Heather, is that a a open access resource, or are they paying for that resource? And if so, which library system is Heather at?
I think someone has said,
I'm at the Marion County Public Library System, and it is actually something that we did. It's not open access, I don't believe, but it is the tools are all really helpful for people. They are kind of a solution to people who want to self-publish. And when you go through Biblioboard, you have access to the entire state of other people who are using Biblioboard. And one of the cool things too is the Pressbooks feature is basically a publishing software that is free for your patrons if you have this software. And we're also using it. There's another side. It's for us to store our digital collections. So it's kind of one or the other. So it's it's a lot of things. It has a place to house our digital collections. It has this part, which is called the Indie Author Project, which has the Pressbooks feature, which lets you turn your manuscript into a publishable document. And it has the other project where you can submit it and people from the Library Journal review it. And if it's one of the best, you can actually get a highlight on it, which has an opportunity for royalties for the people who have it. who that happens to their item. Every time there's a book checked out, they receive a royalty for that. And it also has a thing called Creator, which we have not, I'll be honest, we have not implemented yet or used yet, but it would have something for, like, let's say we wanted to have a bookmark contest. It would have a way to receive those bookmark art in a place that we could easily access it, manage it. We also have final say for publication through Creator. So if something comes in that doesn't really fit our expectations, we don't have to have it go through to this database. But a lot of options: video, audio, visual, all of them.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing all that. I'll look into it now. We have students that have a project that they have to do in one of their classes where they have to trace their family history. And so I think this will be really great. I mean, we refer them to Ancestry, and then we have other like demographic databases that we use to help them find information. We use the 1950 census, which is free. But this seems like it would be a little bit more engaging. And
Yeah.
so I'll, follow up on that. So thank you so much, Heather.
Absolutely. It's not actually oriented toward anything genealogical. It's actually oriented to self-published authors, but we were realizing there was a lot more option, a lot more variability to that. So really, when you go there as a patron, you're going to see a lot of fiction and a lot of short stories and novels and stuff, but we saw it as a possibility for it to be something even more than that because of the tools they provide. So this would be kind of like to augment what they were doing, is a way for them to actually take their work and make it publishable. Not to say that it's not a publishing software itself, it's just the part that turns it into that file type and helps you. If you want, you can email me. I'll put, we can chat. It's just heather.webb@marionfl.org, and I can tell you more.
Okay,
I
great.
don't work for Biblioboard, I promise.
Okay, no, I get it. And I'm familiar with Pressbooks. We use it a lot in promoting OER. So yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. I will email you, and thank you.
Right, and I see that Brian also, in relation to this, talked about, let's see, where is it? It jumped again. If someone could read off that, if you can find Brian's, or he can come off mute and share something about writers group. As soon as I started to read it, it jumped.
Is it, I have compiled over 200 genealogy study guides that cover topics of relevance to this question. Oh, and also Brian Ancestry Library Edition, Family Search Wiki, and Cindy's list off
Okay,
host.
I will
Okay.
try to read it. I'll try to read it to you because mine is skipping all over the place. First one, Ancestry Library Edition, Family Search Wiki, and Cindy's List offer a host of links that help people begin their process of publishing their family history. Many genealogical and historical societies. Okay, will this go up? I'm having the same problem you're having.
Well, thank you.
Many genealogical or historical societies also offer these services. We help patrons find this, but we don't get in the business of making recommendations.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you,
And
Brian.
I also said in another one that over 34 years, I've compiled over 200 plus study guides that describe the types of records that people need to use to do this type of publishing. If anybody is interested in my sending them the guide that gives you a subject listing of the topics, my email address is B as in Brian, MULCAHY @leegov.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you for typing it in, Vanessa, because my thing is I'm off today. I'm listening to this from home, and my laptop is skipping all over the place.
Well, Brian, thank you for joining us on your day off. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And that's valuable information that you just shared.
And when
So,
I mentioned the business databases earlier, I confess that since I'm home, I don't have the library homepage right in front of me. Otherwise, I could rifle them all off to you. But we have quite a few business databases, and they all have had proven track records for success. But I cannot remember them off the top of my head, a lot of them off the top of my head right now. I'll only say I'm having a junior moment, and that's all I'll admit to on that.
well, thank you, Brian. Oh my goodness.
My
I have,
job is to try to help rescue everyone from the ranks of the unfound.
but thank you so much, Brian, for sharing that information. And as he mentioned, if you want to learn more, I have posted his email in the chat. All right. Now that BiblioBoard resource sounds fascinating and sounds like it's not just for genealogy, but also for more subjects as well. But being able to self-publish is amazing.
It definitely is something we are excited about. Not only do we get to store our own digital resources on BiblioBoard, but because they have partnered with the Indie Author Project and are using Pressbooks, it really is a great resource.
Awesome. Do you plan to use that for other areas?
Yes, we do have plans. We haven't yet solidified which ones,
Okay.
but once we get Creator going, so for sure, right now we are reaching our writers groups with it, meaning like, hey, if you need to publish, if you'd like to start here, one of the great parts is that when you publish through BiblioBoard, you retain all rights
Oh,
and you retain the
awesome.
right to have it removed later. And there have been success stories of people being found by major publishers on BiblioBoard. So they'll talk about, if you have contact, they talk about that. But one of the best things about it is that it's giving a chance for maybe someone who comes to your library with a self-publish that it won't fit your collection, but you still want to support them. This is a great way for them to get exposure in your area at the very least. It depends on, if they're in another county over, they may not have the same access, but the more people that get BiblioBoard, more counties, the more access throughout the state. And if you do get added to the select list, which is like the highlight few, it's nationwide.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then
Very
we are
nice.
planning to do like kids programs and maybe like we're not sure about like maybe a community cookbook through the creator process, which is a whole different side where people can submit their own content. We're thinking about doing a history of the library, like people who have photos and histories from libraries and other things. There's so many options. We haven't narrowed it down yet.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. Okay, that is fascinating. And I'm sure there are other fascinating success stories among you. If not, this discussion is just for you. So if there's no other things you want to talk about, I can give you 15 minutes back of your day, but I really am enjoying this conversation. Any other programs related to e-resources or anything you would like to share? Possibly upcoming events that you might be having? Okay. So I'm curious. I've asked it previously, but want to ask it again. Are there any topics you would like to discuss in future DLIS discussions? As I mentioned before, we received this request via email, but would love to know your thoughts on any future topics that would be of interest to you, that might be helpful in what you do on a regular basis, or just for you, for your library staff, our patrons, or something that you might be personally interested in. Just from our discussion today, I could hear a lot of spin-offs from this one. I've been taking notes, but I definitely would love to hear from you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Vanessa. I had mistakenly direct messaged Heather, but I put in the chat, how are libraries using AI tools with patrons?
Awesome. How are AI libraries using tools with patrons? That is a great topic.
So I'd like to know because we do have a committee here at UNF that is currently discussing it.
Hmm.
But I'd like to know how maybe public libraries or special libraries is using this, to try to advance services with patrons.
Great. Thank you so much, Deborah. That's an excellent topic. AI has been trending for quite some time, so I'm sure that would be fascinating to not just academic libraries, but public libraries, special libraries, all types of libraries, because it's going to be everywhere. All right. Any other topics? We have 10 more minutes left in our discussion. Well, if you think of any other topics that you would like for us to discuss as a group, please feel free to either uh, email me at vanessa.gray at fl, no, ds, dos.fl.gov. Let me repeat that. Vanessa.gray at dos.fl.gov. Thank you, Chelsea, for posting that in the chat. You can email me directly um, and share what your thoughts are. Thank you so much, Deborah. Would love to hear more of what would be of interest to you, because we want to make sure that these discussions are beneficial, that they're helpful, that they're impactful for what you do in your work and how you serve your patrons every day. And thank you so much for all that you do. With that, we're going to end this discussion, and I look forward to seeing you in our December discussion. We'll be talking about community education updates, things that we have planned for next year coming up, and would love for you to be there. Definitely come ready with your ideas and your topics so we can put out more of what you would like for us to share with you and for you to share with each other. Thank you so much, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.